Welcome to another weekly update on layoff news. Sadly, this week we have Verizon announcing that they are laying off 20% of their workforce, and that amounts to about 15,000 to 20,000 jobs. In this video, I am referencing ChatGPT just because it's convenient and it's pulling from various sources. In my previous videos, I usually pulled a specific source, but I figured moving forward it's probably best if I just get the core bullet points. So just a quick heads up on that. If you want to dive into this topic further, you're free to do some research on your own, but I find for news like this, ChatGPT is pretty damn accurate, so I don't think there's any negative things about using it for this. But anyways, going back to what I was talking about, Verizon announced a 20% job cut, which amounts to 15,000 to 20,000 people right before the holidays. And I believe they announced that these cuts could begin as soon as next week. Yes, right here. Layoffs are to begin as soon as next week, and that's right before the holidays. Today is literally a week, I believe, a week before Thanksgiving. So imagine a week before Thanksgiving, or 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, you're finding out that you're going to lose your job. Like, how stressful is that? These are tens of thousands of people. The reason for the layoffs is pretty obvious, but subscribers they're not gaining as much consumers or subscribers as they would hope to break even. They've invested a lot in 5G. They've acquired smaller companies, and they put money back into their business, but their business isn't really gaining new customers or retaining customers rather, because of competitions like AT&T, T-Mobile, etc. People have options now, which is good for us because the last thing you want is a monopoly. But because there's options and people are, I think a part of it is people are also getting laid off, so it's sort of a snowball effect. It's like if people get laid off, big companies like Verizon suffer because people are getting laid off en masse, so they have to cut their phone bill, they have to get cheaper plans. It's all a cycle. So it's funny how things work. Big companies lay off employees to save money, but in turn, these big companies that rely on employees to keep their company alive begin suffering. So it's just so ironic, and it's the way these companies operate when they lay people off is very short-sighted. It's good for investors in the short term, but I think we're seeing the long-term effects of like the 2022, 2023 layoffs, because people are a lot more frugal now. They're a lot more poor. So yeah, Verizon I think this is a good example. They're not making money because people aren't buying new phone plans. That's just the way I see it. Anyways, back to the details. So about 180 to 200 company-owned Verizon retail stores will be converted to franchises. So those stores where you walk into Verizon, you could get a new phone, you could talk to a customer service and activate a new plan, or get a phone case, or get something repaired. All those stores, all those employees that work there, they're going to be transitioned to work for more of an independent or private person that is working under the Verizon company, but they're not really a corporate employee of Verizon. Kind of like if you work at a McDonald's, you're not really working for McDonald's. You're working at a McDonald's chain store, and you're working for a manager that owns that McDonald's. And that's basically what Verizon is going to do. And that's bad news for the employees, because usually that means there's a transition period, there's uncertainty. Who knows how the benefits work, how that's going to transition, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to get laid off. How smooth is this transition going to be? And if there's a new third-party management company coming in, I'm pretty sure they're going to want to cut cost, they want to cut employees, and it's going to be like it's going to feel like a spare tire or band-aid situation. I don't think it's good news at all. And if I was working at Verizon, I would start looking for a new job ASAP. And I'm sure they all know it. But anyways, this is the largest Verizon layoff ever in history. They've never laid off this many people before, at least at once, but they're doing it now, and I think it's a reflection of the state of the economy, the state of the snowball effect from the layoffs in 2022, 2023, and the overall just job market and consumer market. People are getting laid off, people are spending less, companies like this are going to begin to suffer. And I think it's really sad that all of this is happening right before the holidays. We're going to see a lot of holiday depression. So brace for that. One thing I want to note is, yes, this is, you can see that it has here. I asked the question here if most of these jobs are in the U.S. and yes, it is. Verizon is a U.S. based company. Most of their employees are based in the United States. So this announcement of up to 20,000 layoffs will affect United States workers, and that will affect the United States economy, and that will affect etc. and that will affect etc. You could do the map of what snowball effect big picture this will look like. Verizon is one data set. We had Amazon like 1 or 2 weeks ago announcing up to 30,000 layoffs. So you do the math. These companies appear in the headlines because they're the large tech companies, but smaller, medium-sized companies that are also impactful, but they're not so famous. Who knows how many how many layoffs are happening in the private sector of smaller companies, and what these thousands of smaller to medium-sized companies that aren't so famous, if you add them all up, it probably is hundreds of thousands of more employees being laid off during the holidays. But I just want to cover this. This is just adding on to the previous big layoffs news happening right before the holidays, and who knows what other company will announce theirs next month in December. So this is very very alarming news. Even if you have a job like me, I just got a new job, you should still monitor what's happening out there, because it's going to affect you. Even if you have a job, it's going to affect your buying power for your dollar. It's going to affect how your company operates. Even though you're still employed, your company, the investors and CEOs are also looking at what's going on with other companies. So if a lot of companies are laying people off, they're also going to look. The company you work for is probably going to look at their budget and question, what could be minimalized in spending, what could be more efficient. And if you work for a company right now, that company probably doesn't want to end up like other companies, so they're trying to gauge it carefully too. So everyone's kind of staying on their toes. But anyways, enough of this corporate stuff. Stay mentally healthy. I think staying mentally healthy during the holidays is really crucial, because there's always going to be negative noise out there, but what matters is you are able to keep going, and you're able to have fun and do the things you like, even though there's chaos around you. And I know these content that I make seems very negative, but this is actually me having an outlet and making content. So doing this for me is actually sort of an escape from my 9 to 5. And even though it's negative, it allows me to do something that I feel is productive and different than my daily routine. So that's my outlet, is this channel. But what is your outlet? If you're involved in this Verizon layoff, maybe take a 1 or 2 weeks break and don't think too hard about it, and find your outlet where you could relax mentally and do good things, and then get back out there, because there's always jobs hiring. And I think the trick is to be open to getting paid less than you were before, because this is more about survival time. It sucks, but just find a job where you could feel okay for the most part, as long as you have a job, and as long as you can use that as a bridge when things get a little better. So don't think of it as a permanent place. Oh, like, oh, let's just say you were making $30 an hour in Verizon or whatever company, and you got laid off right before the holidays. It's okay to like get a $18 an hour, $20 an hour job. It's gonna suck, but think about it. You could work that job for a little while, and then when things settle down, the new year starts, companies start hiring, you start applying. You don't have, just like you got laid off in your current job, you're always moving throughout life. Okay, so I don't know, that was just a random thought to end this video on a positive note. But yeah, stay on your toes, keep learning, and keep pushing through. It's tough times. If you've gotten laid off, it's not your fault, and I will continue covering these stories because I think it's important to build a community and build some narrative around all this stuff, because I know people are struggling out there. Anyways, just because it's the holidays doesn't mean you have to be depressed because you're broke. You could still have a good time and be broke. Don't worry, there's a new year coming up. Light's always around the corner. Subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.